Joining us now is Brad Polumbo, a deputy opinion contributor editor for the Washington Examiner. So, Brad, you've kind of helped us walk through this whole kind of primary season so far. The big development last week was Mike Bloomberg, but I just want to kind of start broadly with the debate last night. It was one of the more, I would say, contentious that I've seen so far. Who do you think came out as the biggest winner?
Wow, well, it's good to be with you after last night was the craziest and most entertaining debate of this entire cycle. You know, this was a proper Las Vegas smackdown fight fest. These candidates have really, they just let it all loose after really having, you know, tight-lipped talking points, the slightly veiled jabs at each other so far. They all just went for the jugular, and it was like watching a WWE cage match, Alex. So I will say it was great for journalists. We had a blast covering it, but it was really wild. And I think I can say in terms of who won, it's hard to say, but you were right. Mike Bloomberg lost horribly. What a nightmare showing for him. Yeah. He had no adequate answers for the attacks that were levied against him, and he really just did himself a lot of harm by stepping up on that stage.
I totally agree. And in fact, some consultant who's getting paid a lot more than other consultants right now is probably not too hot right now in that campaign. I mean, I don't know whose idea it was to put him on that stage so quickly, but it was very obvious that he was unprepared, even for some of the questions that he should have known were coming, whether it be those NDAs or the stop and frisk thing. I mean, all of our viewers have seen those videos for the better part of a couple of weeks now, and to finally put him on stage, we kind of saw why he didn't want to be on stage in the past. So do you think this changes anything for the Bloomberg campaign moving forward?
Well, it should change their staff, because everyone that told him to do this and failed to prepare him should be fired immediately. It was that awful. But I will say, I'll say this, is I think Mike Bloomberg should take the debate stage. I think it looks bad to not. What made it a terrible night for him was not that he showed up to debate, but that he showed up not prepared for these attacks. You know, Mike Bloomberg has a stunning history of alleged sexism and gender discrimination at his companies. And we know about this. I've written multiple columns about it. It's been all over the media. Elizabeth Warren has made these attacks before. He should have known they were coming, and he had no reply. She pointed out all these horror stories, from him calling women horse-faced lesbians to telling a pregnant employee to kill her baby and get an abortion. Really, Mike Bloomberg, the allegations against him are shocking of some of the things he said. And obviously it is true, like Senator Warren noted, that he's used non-disclosure agreements to prevent women from speaking out. None of this was news last night. We all knew it was going to come up. Perhaps we were surprised by how raucous it came out, but we all knew it was going to come up, and he just didn't have a response for it. And that's what's truly stunning here, Alex.
Yeah, and I think the Warren and the Bloomberg kind of debate right there, that was the most contentious of the night. It was early on, and she kind of revisited that several times. But I think another story of the night, too, was kind of Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar going at one another. They're kind of the second-tier type of moderates, if you will. They see that they're losing time right now. They know that Super Tuesday is coming up. They know that right now they're trailing behind the other so-called moderates, that being, of course, Joe Biden and Michael Bloomberg, weirdly enough, although that might change in the polls after last night's debate. Do you think that we'll see some of these candidates drop out maybe in the near future, or is the end goal for a lot of these moderates making it to Super Tuesday and seeing how they fare from there?
Well, I think we could see some of them drop out after the first four contests are over, or they could make it through Super Tuesday, either way. But I think the tension between Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar is kind of inevitable, right? Because they're competing for the same lane in the primary. This kind of more moderate, not fully socialist Democratic voter, not minority voters. Neither of them have any chance with minorities, but white, Midwestern, somewhat moderate Democrats. So they're competing for the same voters, and they've gone at each other's throats. And I got to say, I feel a little bit bad for Amy Klobuchar, right? Because Pete is throwing shade at her on this stage, and she loses her temper with him because she's been in the Senate since 2006. And, you know, whether you agree with her policies or not, she's a competent lawmaker who's passed hundreds of bills into law and served in high federal office. And she has this mayor next to her sneering at her and throwing shade at her, even though his biggest achievements are implementing a pet chip scanning program and taking down one-way street signs in South Bend. So I think the tension between the two of them is inevitable, and honestly, it really exploded on the debate stage last night.
I think you're right. And regarding Buttigieg, too, he's kind of using the criticisms against him, that being inexperienced, and kind of using that to his advantage since he doesn't really have a record to go off of. Whereas someone, as you were just saying, like Amy Klobuchar, has an extensive record. It's easy to pick apart over the span of however many years she's been in the Senate, where you can't necessarily do that to Pete Buttigieg. So I think last night we got some real answers moving forward. Of course, the Nevada caucuses will be on Saturday. Brad, I really appreciate you coming on and breaking down this debate for us. Thank you.